Hi all, Ross here, Thomas Classic and Modern. Welcome back to the channel. First of all, sincere apologies for the lack of content over the past couple of weeks. We have not only been busy in work, but we've also been busy outside of work. We had a weekend not so long back with the fantastic Cornish mini club Riviera run. We had a weekend off down there. I say off, we were still technically working and trading down there. Very, very good weekend, but obviously it takes time out of our schedule. So today we are back in the big workshop. Sounds a bit like an episode of Play School there, really, doesn't it? But yes, today we're back in the big workshop. Unfortunately, today is one of those videos that I've been wanting to put out, but I get an awful lot of stick via various social media platforms for pointing out bad workmanship and belittling other people's work and customers' cars, etc., etc. But to be fair, everything that I point out is justified. We have an unfortunate situation at the moment where we've had a car in from a customer that we've been waiting for a little while from a body shop that have restored his car. Now, I've said this before and many people have sort of agreed and disagreed, and I am not tarring all body shops with the same brush. Most of the body shops that I've ever dealt with will not restore a car. This one is slightly different because this has been taken on as, I've not seen the car previously, so I can't comment on what it was like when they had it, but it was in pretty poor shape. So obviously anything that's been done is an improvement. Understand that, no problem whatsoever. And, you know, the customer is under the impression that this car has been bodily restored. It's a difficult one. All I will say is when we get into it now and I show you what's what, there will be hundreds of people probably turning around and going, that's absolutely fine. What you on about? You know, what you moaning about? I'm not moaning, not at all. I'm just pointing out the issues that can arise when you have a body shop restore your car. Now, this vehicle has been brought to us for its mechanical restoration. And by that, I mean that the customer is well aware that this car has been off the road for a number of years. So in his mind now, he's had all the body work done. So it's down to us now to do all the running gear, engine, you know, suspension, tires, interior, headlining, all of that sort of thing is what it's here for. Now, that is fine, no issue whatsoever. That is what the car is here for. I could just almost turn a blind eye to the issues, if you like, that are with this car, and I could probably go down the lines of saying, just not in for that, not in for that at all. But I have a duty of care and a due diligence for my customer to just make him aware that actually, listen, I don't want you spending a fortune on this car now, having the engine and gearbox rebuilt. We have to paint the engine bay. When we get into it, we'll show you that. Engine's not been out of this car, front subframe's not been out of it. So we knew we were going to have to paint the engine bay because the body shop said that they wouldn't get involved in doing that. Which kind of rings alarm bells in the first place to me, to be honest with you. But that's fine, that's not a problem. But what I didn't want is the customer to have all of that work done, new rear subframe, all the front subframe rebuilt, reconditioned, engine rebuilt, reconditioned as needed, interior cleaned up, you know, reconditioned as needed, brakes, tires, wheels refurbished, you know, headlining, new rubber seals, etc., etc., spending all of that time, effort and money on it, when actually the underpinnings, if you like, of the restoration that's been done could well rear their head in the not too distant future. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the car itself. I've spoken to the customer. Customer's more than happy for us to do this video. and point out the bits and pieces. It's a nice little reference for them as well. At the end of the day, restoring these cars is not a cheap affair, and they are becoming more and more valuable, and realistically they do deserve to be done fully and correctly. And the last thing that you want, which easily takes the fun out of the ownership of these cars, is having to spend fortunes as you go along. As we've said before in many of our videos, many of our social media posts, do it once, do it properly, and just enjoy it. So let me show you the car in person. So we'll just spin around, and I would imagine your first impressions are going to be the same as mine. That looks like a nice car. And there it is. It is not a 500. It is a late model Cooper Sport, but it is not a 500. As I say, I don't know what the condition of the car was when it was presented to the body shop for restoration. It could have been, as most of these later sport packs are, you know, a complete basket case. And it certainly had a lot of work, and it's, you know, certainly sporting what looks like a reasonably nice coat of paint. But when you get into it and you start to look at things, and the first thing I noticed on this one was when it turned up on the trailer, obviously it was on the flatbed, it was obviously quite high. So the first thing that I noticed, because it was at eye level, was this area here, which is, that is the seam sealer that's in that joint. Yeah, and what's actually happened, if I just grab a torch and show you, you might be able to pick this up in video, you might not. If I just shine a torch on that panel there, you might be able to see that that has been flatted and polished to within an inch of its life. And what they've actually done is they've polished right through the edge of the seam sealer that's been left proud on there. So that there is flexible seam sealer that's in the joint. That's a small thing, relatively. That could be rectified, but it kind of begs the question as to, well, if I noticed that, surely the guys that painted it or, you know, built it all back together have noticed that as well. But that's just one of the things that instantly smacked me when it was on the recovery truck. The other thing that I could instantly notice when it was on the recovery truck, because again it was eye level, was the shape of this rear quarter repair down here. Just there, you can see that that rear quarter is nowhere near the correct shape as that door. Now, this is, I would say, has had rear quarter panels probably put in it, I would imagine. We don't know. We haven't taken the rear door cards out as yet, but that is certainly not correct. And that is the same both sides, exactly the same both sides. They haven't carried on with the decals down the side. Decals should go down the front wings, so they've stopped them there. And for some reason, they are far too far down the rear quarter. Again, not a major issue, just almost a quality thing, and again, probably shows the inexperience of the people that did it as to how these things are supposed to look and supposed to be done. Coming around to the rear, again, you know, looks $1 million, you know, looks absolutely fine. Lovely colour, absolutely love tidy blue, and the silver. It's clearly the original boot lid. I know that because it fits. You can see an awful lot of build up on the corner of the boot lid there. Yeah, awful lot of paint. This boot lid, I think, has been painted off the car. And the reason I say that is because the inside of the boot lid, again, is very heavily painted as if it's been sat on a trestle. But the first thing that smacks you is that little lot in there. You might be able to pick that up in the video, but that all in there is filler. Again, you know, understand this, the car's probably had a little tap at some point in the back, you know, so it's not a major issue to straighten these things out and put some filler in there. Might have been an idea if you were restoring this car to probably go that little bit of an extra mile and put a boot skin on there. Or, you know, certainly try and planish that a bit more than it is. But again, that in itself, not a major issue, but just an instant smack in the face. And then when you get into the boot, you notice, hopefully you can pick that up, this huge dent crease in the boot floor, just across there. So again, obviously evidence of accident damage, we are assuming. But then you come over to the other side, over here, and it's creased all in the corner, just behind the tank. And there's also a big lump of filler just there. So we don't actually know what that's hiding. Might not be hiding anything. It might just be an overspill or something like that. But again, it's just not great. You may also be able to see, which I'll show you when we're underneath, the horrible, huge plate that's been welded in the top of that rear arch. And it really doesn't look great from in here. And again, slapped up with seam sealer. No idea whether that's welded internally. My gut feeling would be it's not. However, when we get it up in the air now very shortly, I shall show you that repair from underneath. And it's underneath that this thing really sort of rears its head. So just before we put it up in the air, again, pet hate of mine. We've seen a few of these cars come back from body shops, and you get this covered in body shop dust, you know, absolutely caked in it. Again, you know, it's not really a problem, but it just smacks of that bit of care and attention and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, feel free to tell me if you think I'm moaning about nothing, but hey, you know, at the end of the day, we're here to rescue this for the customer, and that's exactly what we'll do. You might also be able to see the heavy seam sealer in the channels there. We've actually found that if you put, I won't be able to show you on the camera, but the wings are actually plug welded on, and they've broken through underneath where all the spot welds were, etc. There's no paint underneath there at all. Another one of those areas where I say, unfortunately, you know, this will start to break through in a cotton picking season, really. I can't show you in camera, but again, and the bonnet's not lined up, but hey. Scuttle panel's been replaced. Underneath the scuttle panel, right the way across there, is completely black, and it has the Magnum panel sticker on it. So again, non-genuine panel. Yeah, some people use genuine non-genuine panels. No problem with that. If that's what you want to do, if you're using a non-genuine panel, and we have used non-genuine panels for certain things, you have to. The key really is to make sure that there's plenty of paint and protection on them. That has nothing on it. It's completely black right the way under there in the standard sort of, I won't even say E-coat, because they come in sort of a primer, black flashed over primer, if you like. And most of the time you can get your nail on it and it'll just peel off. But again, just one of those things that really not great. But I'm just going to point out now the other bits and pieces that are underneath that have sort of set alarm bells ringing, if you like. So let's get it up in the air and see what we can do. Okay, so from here now we got it up on the ramp. You can see this seam sealer mistake a little bit better. The one thing that you will notice is the wings are flexing, and the reason for that is when they've repaired this, they haven't put the sport pack arch reinforcing lips back in. What they've seemed to have done is cut bits and pieces and left them all around. You may also be able to pick up in that video another absolute massive pet hate of mine. See these little sort of marks here? If you can just pick that up, you might just be able to get that in the light. Yeah, there we go. So those little marks there are around every fixing point for the sport pack arches. And the reason for that is, instead of replacing the studs that constantly come out on the front arches, instead of replacing the studs, this one has had self-tappers fitted. So there's a self-tapper now coming from the back of that arch, from the back of that wing through the hole into the arch. But that's what does that. You get that sort of witness mark, if you like, as to where they're pushing into the hole and spreading them. So bit of a shame, that one. But they have made sure that they're not going to come off, because they've decided to put an extra screw through the front of the arch right into the front panel. Same both sides, and they're just self-drilling tech screws, as they're called, stuck through on the inside. So whether you can see that there, that's what we've got. So again, just another one of those things, I suppose. You might be able to see from there. I'm not sure whether the camera angle will get it, but you might be able to see the self-tappers as well that I was just referring to up in there. Just up in there, going into the arch. And you can also see the bits that they've welded on here and there to try and reinforce that arch. We just go around the other side. And over here again, you can see what I was talking about with the shape of this rear quarter repair being pretty much flat. It's a difficult one. It may even be that it's had a doorstep, not a rear quarter, and they've laid it over the top of the existing doorstep. That would also give you the same issue, because obviously, as you can imagine, you've got one panel going over another. Might be something like that. But whichever way around, it's certainly not correct. It's the wrong shape. You might be able to see from here the rear wheel arch. And up in there, you can see the evidence of that patch repair. So you can see the welding right the way around. Well, you can feel the welding right the way around and up on this back section of the arch and across the top there. I will just see if I can flip you around and get you up behind there. You might be able to see that. I'm not sure. Struggling really to get the camera in there. But that's the back side of the arch there that's been repaired. And obviously, looking at it, not really had the welds ground down or any sort of seam sealer or anything like that. Sorry if it's a bit difficult to make out, but that's probably the easiest way for you to see it. So I did say I wasn't going to get into the mechanicals on this, but this is one of the things we do have to sort. Okay, so we're up in the air. Again, front panel heavily sort of stone chipped. That in itself not a major issue. I personally don't like them when they're heavily stone chipped like that. But you know, again, it's one of those things. But then if you come to the back of that panel, again, no paint, no protection, So no seam sealer, no rust treatment in there, no nothing. You know, that front panel isn't going to be long before it rots through right in the middle there again. But the first thing that smacked me when we looked underneath was, yes, it's had a new floor, and we've got this. Just cut the front to rear fuel lines. Then it kind of gets a bit worse. All right, the skid plate, as you call it, the protection plate is missing from up there. Not a major issue that. You can see by all the bolts here, none of this has been apart. Yeah, so this front subframe assembly has been in here for the entirety of this work. As you can see, there's nowhere for us to put these plastic clips, which sort of, you know, go up there with a screw head through there. They screw onto a stud, exactly the same as this. This is the sort of stud that are welded to the floors in order to take a sort of plastic nut, if you like. But again, it's one of those things. These pipes are not available. That's not something you can ring up your local motor factors or Rover dealer or whatever and say, oh, can I have a new set of fuel pipes? Can't do it. So we've got you know, luckily we've got good stocks of good used parts. I'm sure we'll be able to put a set of pipes together for this chap. It's kind of not really the point. But again, perhaps a little bit of inexperience working on these cars, not knowing which parts are available and are not, and so on and so forth. You're probably not going to pick this up on camera. You might do. But there's absolutely nothing in those sills. No paint, no protection, no cavity wax, no nothing. When we fit a new floor like this, obviously if we buy a floor that comes complete with the sills already on, we do it before we fit the floor. Down inside that box section is that channel is fully rust treated, fully zinc primed, and fully painted in close to body color. Doesn't matter really what color you paint the inside of there, but we've always got close to body color, so that's what we do it in. But again, that hasn't been done in this instance. As I say, I'm not getting into mechanicals. Subframe's knackered, we know that. That's not a major problem. We come to the back, and it doesn't look as if under here has had anything at all. So this is pretty much, I would say, as you would expect to see this car from factory, just a flash over of a bit of, you know, something. And you can see bare areas coming through and so on and so forth. And the same rear valance. Nothing up inside the rear valance is painted, you know, or protected, so on and so forth. So again, just that little bit of, well, you know, if you're doing something like this, why not do it so that it lasts? But, and again, you get this, which is obviously where they put the subframe back in. They've scraped that, yeah, and as you can see, they've scraped that down to bare metal, yeah. So they've obviously, where they put the subframe back in just for transit, they've scraped that down to bare metal. Now, if left alone, obviously, that's going to rot, and these things do rot for fun. Plenty of seam sealer up in there again. Too much, if I'm perfectly honest. And again, exactly the same with the front to rear brake pipe here. They've just snicked it, you know, cut it to get the rear subframe out. Obviously, they've had to have the rear subframe out to put a floor in it. I get that, understand that, but it's just a shame when you've had somebody have so much work done to a car. I can't really understand for the life of me how you would attempt to put a floor in a car without taking the engine and gearbox out. I cannot get that at all. When you've got all that weight hanging in the front, it might have been done on some form of jig or something like that. I don't honestly know. But it's certainly not the way that I would do it. If this was having a flaw, it's engine out. No two ways about it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're up against under here. Just, you know, it is a new floor. We're gonna have to now clean off some areas here and stud weld some studs on. Gonna have to do that. We're gonna have to dig into that rear arch and certainly clean that up or do something with it. Obviously, if the customer wants us to, I dare say he does. And obviously we're gonna need to deal with all the bits and pieces up the front. One thing that I did forget to mention, which you might or might not be able to see, these wings are actually not the correct wings for the car. They haven't got the recess in the bottom of the bowl for the motor to sit in. So what they've done is they've obviously just drilled a hole for the self-leveling motor to go through. Again, you know, not a major issue, just not right. And at the end of the day, if you're doing something like this, why not have it right? That there is the sticker for the manufacturer of this wing, Magnum, not Heritage. And again, you can see where it's just been sort of had a quick flash over on the back side. There's no seam sealer down that A panel joint. Anybody that knows minis knows that that is a rot trap. So that's you know, again, a no-no really when you're having something like this restored. So bit of a better view here of obviously the screw coming through, and you can also see where they've cut these wings to kind of give some clearance for these, which you need to do, I understand that. But again, they've obviously just broken off all of the paint and protection, bare edges, so that that's going to rust through in no time at all. And obviously you can see the screw up there that's holding the sport pack arching. And again, you might be able to make that out. The overzealous use of seam sealer, shall we say. My gut feeling, and it is only a gut feeling, that they are not spot welded together. I haven't seen evidence of any spot welds anywhere on this, so I'm assuming that everything is plug welded together. But certainly if you are a professional outfit, a body shop, you should really have access to a spot welder. But again, it's just one of those things where you think to yourself, do you know what, you're a professional outfit, you've taken on a restoration for a customer, and realistically you haven't got the kit to do the job. That's how it appears. So yes, it's up to us now to try and do the best we can for this customer, really. We'll try and, you know, paint and protect as many places as we can when we tear this down to a bare shell. We're going to have to tear it down to a bare shell because it needs a headline input in it. So that's absolutely fine. And obviously subframes need to come out and so on and so forth. Running gear be overhauled. So it's going to come down to a bare shell. We'll probably end up putting this one on our spit, if I'm honest, because there'll be nothing in it. So for the sake of a, you know, half an hour or so, we'll get it rigged up on the spit so we can turn it over and have a good sort of look and make sure that everything is all okay as best as we can, to put it back together, get as much paint and protection in places as we can. But I think we really need to dig into those sort of rear quarter doorstep areas to make sure that they are repaired properly. It's going to need an awful lot of titivating in places. It's going to need some localized paintwork. There's no two ways about that. We're going to have to do something with the front panel and the seam sealing and so on and so forth, that's visible there. But if we can keep it localized, then great, you know. But the ultimate question to ask is, what is the customer expecting? Is he expecting something that is restored and perfect? Or is he expecting something that will roll on for another few years before it needs any major work again? Judging by how much work has been done to this, I am assuming it's option A. He's expecting something that is right, and so he should at the end of the day. If you've gone this far and had a restoration done, you do want it right, and you want it to be painted, protected, and, you know, fitted up correctly, welded together correctly, cavity wax fitted, you know, the correct panels fitted. So I think it may be a case of when we get it down to a shell, we might end up going a couple of steps back to come forward. And as I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not tarring all body shops with the same brush. I'm a firm believer in allow people to do what they're good at. And we have a network of very, very good body shops who do our painting for us, and they are superb. They're spot on. But we do the restoration. And obviously we do everything else. Localized paintwork, bits and pieces here and there, yes, we do it. We've got our own booth, that's what we do. But full paints, no, we entrust that to a body shop. So I'm not tearing body shops a new one here. That's not what I'm doing. All I'm saying to you guys is please, please, please consider, if you are having your car restored, your first port of call should not be a body shop. And if you are going to use a body shop for restoration purposes, try and see some of their previous restoration, not just their paint work, because you can hide a multitude of sins to the untrained eye with a good coat of paint. Thanks very much for watching. Apologies, it's a bit of a lengthy, moany talking video. As I say, we're back to sort of normality now, hopefully. So we're going to be getting back on now with some more of our technical videos. We've got some video footage to release on Tom, our project car. The rear subframe side of things is all complete on that. We're now going to be moving on to the front. So look out for the next couple of videos in that series. So in the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening to me waffle on. Apologies if I have waffled on a bit, but I hope you take something from it. And hopefully from here on in, we can get back to our sort of normal content for you, a bit more techie stuff. So take it easy and we'll see you on the next video.